Welcome to Out of the Blank.
Welcome back to another episode. Mikey Bowser. It's nice to have you, Mr. Paranormal Investigator, Mr. I was trying to think of another one that could lead into it.
That works. I'll take that. That's probably the most interesting part of my life. So
Speaker
pretty
Between
much
Realms is a better one.
maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Dad by day, demon whisperer at night. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it.
Actor.
I want to go that far.
You were in a film, I heard.
I was in 2 films. I was in one where I actually had a really good part, which was your film, which was awesome. And then I was in the show Mindhunter, where I played a blurry Marine in the background of a bar scene in season 2. It was horrible.
Oh, I thought this was something new. I was like, wait a minute, you were on
No.
Mindhunter?
This was years ago.
Is that Monk? Or
What's that?
Is there a legit show called Mindhunter, or was it like Monk?
Yeah, it was Mindhunter. It was on Netflix. I think they actually stopped the series on season 2, but it was how FBI started profiling serial killers. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he wrote a book about how they started and they kind of defined the term serial killer.
Is there a checklist? Like, how many cats have you killed in the past childhood that you had?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just any crazy, creepy white dude for the most part, actually, is the most stereotypical serial killer.
Damn it, we need to get our rep up.
Yeah.
So, okay, paranormal investigation stuff. I got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
One specifically is you did a recent travel trip. I want to know all about that because I'm talking to UFO people. There's a lot of links with UFO and paranormal experiences as well too. So obviously, I have my own kind of thoughts on that as well. I think with the more people I've talked to, it's not obviously linked in there too. But one that I'm more in belief of than probably aliens is definitely the paranormal side of things, like multi-dimensions and that type of speaking. I mean, there's just things we've talked about in the past that can't be explained. But also that film scene that I used of yours where you caught something that said no, like I had to rewind it a couple times in the actual film so you get to hear the things. That's just gives me goosebumps even thinking about it, dude. Like that's something, I mean, I also have a conspiracy I want to bring up as well too, but I want to hear about your trip.
Okay. Well, the most recent one, I'm assuming you saw the clip where it says demon. That one I posted, I think it was yesterday. We were at Greenville Manor. It's up near Newcastle, Pennsylvania. It's a former funeral home. The guy just bought it sometime late last year. So it's really a newer location. We did get when we did the tour, he actually had somebody there, this woman who lived there when she was a kid with her grandparents. And it was kind of cool getting that aspect and that perspective as we were, learning the history of the place. Because there was a prominent family that lived there for a while, and they started the funeral home in their mansion, essentially. So we did a lot of cool stuff. When we were doing the tour, they did mention that, there's a dark room. And all the house, throughout the house, all the rooms are beautiful, except for this one room. It had wood grain paneling. Every wall was just wood grain paneling. And they said, yeah, when he was setting stuff up, because he had to do a lot of work before opening it for investigations, he said that a door kind of fell at him, and it was as if it was thrown at him. And they got a real negative vibe there. And then when we were doing the tour, the woman that lived there as a kid said that used to be her toy room, her and her sisters. And they went in there one time, and she doesn't remember exactly what happened, but she would never go back in. And her grandparents were actually, kind of pissed off because they set up this toy room, and the kids wouldn't go in it because it was so negative. So in that clip that I had posted, we were in there. I did a solo in there. I have to review the evidence, but I do clearly remember that scene, and we had a flux, which is a machine that does kind of like a yes no thing. So you say green for yes, red for no. And I had asked, "Are you evil?" They say you're evil. Is it true that you're evil? And it blinked yes, like right away. It went green. And then right after that, I was like, I'm going to turn the spirit box on. This was actually a couple minutes later. And I said, "You say that you're evil. What makes you evil? What are you?" And as soon as I turned the spirit box on, it's a demon. Now, I don't know if it's an actual demon or if it's just a negative entity appearing to be a demon. But that was probably the highlight of the trip. And another cool part was we were in the room where they used to do the embalming, and we kept interacting with a woman named Hannah. And it wasn't my wife; it was another Hannah. But we were interacting with a flashlight, and it was cool because I've done flashlight thing a lot, but I've never done it where the flashlight was sitting on a table right in front of me, and I could actually see the flashlight moving as it was twisting on and off. It was really, really creepy. It was a really cool trip.
Do you find it weird that every time the paranormal gets talked about, there's always the talk of the afterlife, obviously, but why is it always followed with some type of like heaven or demon type thing that really follows in with it? Like, even if you people go, well, it doesn't always link in with religion. Yeah, but usually the term demon gets brought up, and the only time you ever reference or mention about demon, if you're not talking about paranormal talk, would be to do something with religion, which then it enters weird territory. What I started finding was there was a guy who's been doing a list of videos on his YouTube channel, and you could just probably type in and search it up, but using Zillow as a ghost kind, or kind of like a crime scene type thing, because it lets you see like, you know how you use Google Maps, you can go to a street. You can do this with some houses on Zillow. They give you a 3D render, and there was a house that was for sale, and it's been sale, like it's like an Amityville style house, but it's been sale for a long time. The guy killed his whole family, and the dude was taking a detour or whatever through the house, like through the virtual thing, like you can do on the website. And there's like these little small rooms that are followed, like stuff, hallways a toddler could walk through, but you'd have to duck down as a person, an army crawl through it. But they would lead into the kids' bedrooms, like secret compartments in the room where there was like, one little kid had like actually, let's see if I'm not gonna pull up the video because it'll get copyright strike. God damn it.
I hate that too.
But
we have one of our documentaries copyright.
but like
Right,
apparently one of the kids was like adopted, and the kid had like a tree like wallpaper that looked like a really old, like, remember in Harry Potter? Actually, two references to Harry Potter. First of all, Harry Potter lived under a fucking staircase. Like,
yeah.
what fucking social services were checking out that shit? Dumbledore didn't do anything to change that kid's life besides sending a fucking owl with a message. Second, Cerberus, when he's showing the family tree on the wall, you see that old style wallpaper where it had all the family's faces and all that type of stuff. That's what the wallpaper was like. It was an old style oak tree that was just all the way up around the kid's bed and everything like that. But then they go, but what is this door? And this dude takes the, like, scrolls over the thing, and there's like a little like under hatch, and in that it looks like a cellar type thing that's in a wall, like a secret room. And it had like a little bit of toys on the floor, and it had like just a small little compartment. And my thought was that when the kid gets angry or the kid gets in a fit or something, they just lock them in there because the door bolted from the outside, not the inside. So it wasn't another spare room to go play secret hideouts. And you start seeing that there's these little rooms everywhere. Then in the actual pictures of the thing, there you're walking through, finding other secret compartments and secret rooms where it looks like the kids could like maneuver through to be able to move around the house. Or maybe if you're an adopted kid and your parents don't like you, in a sense, they don't want you being around other people when they have company, so you have to use these to navigate. There was a fucking shadowy black figure on the fucking ground in the picture around the corner, dude. And I'm getting goosebumps just fucking talking about it. But that's just interesting to me, where I'm like, would that be another ghost hunting tool? Like if you're able to scope out a haunted location through
Yeah, I mean, it's
Zillow.
possible for sure. I know that my boss, well, my former boss, she just retired. Her husband had a location where he used to work. He also retired, but they were talking about letting me investigate it. And I was looking at the pictures on Realtor.com or Zillow, one of the sites, and there was like in one of the pictures there was like an orb that looked like, and orbs, I always question them. A lot of people like validate them very easily, and I think there's too many variables. Like there could be a lens flare, dirt, or even bugs can show up as orbs, and people say, "Oh, look at this orb," but this one looked like a ball of energy, and it was just sitting there on realtor.com, and I'm like, I have to get in there, but unfortunately it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. That's the part where it links in with like UFO stuff, which they talk about the ball lightning type thing. It's like an
Hmm.
idea of fairies, which that ends up opening up the door to like the paranormal or some type of folklore type thing, which I mean, it's all interesting. I just think more like your body's made of like some type of composite energy. And when you die, that energy has to fade somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think it goes to a certain place, but I mean, obviously people are going to disagree. Um, I just think it goes into the energy all around you. And I think it's kind of like a memory in a sense. Like some of it gets stained into the fucking walls wherever you spent the most amount of time. I mean, feeling a presence, for instance. But with the contacting, like how some people can sense it and other people's can't, it's like really, it's different.
Well, it's kind of weird too, because what you're talking about, the residual, because there's always been two classifications of hauntings. There's residual, and that kind of goes along with the stone tape theory, where certain rocks or stones that buildings are made of can harbor energy, and that's where the memories will play over and over again. And those are kind of non-intelligent hauntings, where it's just a memory, and it's just whatever that person may have done over and over again, just playing at certain times or in certain conditions. Where there's also intelligent haunting, where you can actually communicate and they will respond intelligently, and that energy seems like it's a little different. And as far as going back to the demon thing, I think I mean, it depends on your belief system. I'm kind of open to anything, but I would say that there definitely is positive energy, and there's negative paranormal energy. And I think a lot of the times the negative entities, they're not necessarily demons, but that's what everyone associates with as terrifying. So they try to kind of make it so they're more terrifying. So they say, "Yeah, I'm a demon," when they're not really a demon; they're just a really negative entity.
Has your from like all your trips and stuff going to these haunted locations, has your idea of anything really changed?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I was definitely very skeptical. I still think when I first started, but I still think that you need to go into situations with a skeptical mindset, just because you don't want to, throw out, false evidence or anything to that extent. But I feel like I'm being more in tune than I was when I first started. I feel like I have a better openness that allows spirits or energy to communicate with me a little better than when I first started.
Do you think it's just the presence though? Like, just, like, the energy that you give off, because I think people definitely give off energies, like, some people you kinda meet them and they're shooting off, like, a very, this type of vibe.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely. I mean, vibes a huge aspect of what we do in the paranormal field, because I think your energy, I think they do respond to different energies differently. Just like you respond to people differently. I mean, some people are just pricks, and if you don't want to talk to somebody living, and because they're a prick, I doubt anybody dead would want to communicate with them either, just because they're a prick. But if you're open to it, and the more you do it, I feel the more in tune with that energy you can become. And I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely different than when I first started.
Do you think that eventually, like, the evolution process, I would say, you're going to start having more people that are going to be more open to maybe like being engaged into these types of things? Like, for instance, you're seeking out paranormal stuff, so you're more open to the idea of it. And I feel like the more the idea becomes more open, you're just going to have people giving off different types of energies. Like if you went into a haunted location or you went into a regular location, your energy's like, this place not haunted, so I'm not going to look for it. So you're not going to try and be open to that. Your energy frequency, I would say, wouldn't be really open to the idea of like, it's like trying to have a scientist understand, like, going on a ghost hunt. They're gonna be like, "No, this is all because of this, and this is because of this, and this is kind of because of this." But you'll be like, "Well, no, because if I turn on my spirit box, it does this." And like, what the fuck's a spirit box? Like, that's what they would say. Your energies are
Yeah.
different. You're more willing to be open to, and that also gets into skeptical territory. But I think our conversations, for instance, they have some type of severe value with it because I started to learn more about you when you were sending me videos of actual things that you caught, and you start really noticing how like you're debunking your own shit sometimes, where I'm like, that's
Mhm.
what's needed. There's a lot of people, and it gets very, very difficult because, like, I mean, the reason why you guys have so many followers on TikTok's not only like the videos, the funniness in it, is also because people want to see that mystery stuff. And that obviously is going to leak into a creator's head where it's like, well, we got to film this, we got to film this, and just post up the content. It's like, well, is that 100% true though? Like when we make the content, are we making the content to make content, or are we making content because it actually has value to the topic or thing that we're trying to promote and actually try to do?
Yeah, and I think that's I mean, I sent you the message earlier. I think that's really what separates paranormal investigators from ghost hunters. Because I feel like ghost hunters kind of they just go out and say, hey, all right, this thing just turned a flashlight on, or this thing did whatever, and they're going to post it immediately, and that's it. There's no elaboration, there's no trying to debunk it. And I think that's what you need to do. And I think that's what makes a paranormal investigator, real paranormal investigator, is okay, ghost hunters get something and they're like, oh, wow, look at this evidence. Where a paranormal investigator tries to debunk it, they try to tie it to the history of the location, and they try to solve whatever mysteries there are. I mean, that's what I tried to do at Greenville. The owner said, this room's negative. The woman that lived there said, this room's negative. We don't know what's there. So I went in there, and tried to solve the mystery. And whether it's a demon or not, it's definitely something that poses as a demon. So I'm assuming it's a negative entity either way.
When you go
So,
when you go to these haunted locations, when the person who's like running the facility that's letting you like look around and gives you like a backstory, do you ever try and sense out if they're giving you bullshit or not? Like, I feel like a lot of times it gets really hyped up, and I feel like through your own like kind of trips that you've taken, you kind of like listen to someone be like, okay, oh, that's awesome, really? Oh, really? He chopped his arm off. That's awesome. And then you're talking to your friends, and you're just like, yeah, I don't believe a fucking word she said.
I mean, I am always open to the person because a lot of them do the research. Like at Greenville, they actually had documentation of the families that lived there. And, a lot of the places do supply you with documentation proving what their stories are or what they say. But I think that's a part of the investigation because at Greenville, one of the theories, it's not, the owner doesn't say that it's a proven thing or anything like that. But one of the theories is there's a gentleman that was one of the prominent families. I can't remember his name, but in one of the rooms, he accidentally shot himself in the leg while he was cleaning his gun. And uh, the thing that's in your leg that you can bleed out? I can't think of it. The blood vessel or whatever it
The
is.
coronary artery?
Yeah, yeah. They think that he hit that, and that's why he bled out in his. And there's like a bull. It looks like a bullet hole. There's a hole in the wall, and they don't know if it's for sure tied to that shooting or if they, it was some kind of architectural thing that they don't know what it is. But their theory is it may be the bullet. And at one point
Don't
when we
give
were
me no
in that
fucking
room,
magic bullet theory, man. There are more fragments of that bullet in fucking JFK's skull than there was on that fucking intact one.
yeah, well, we won't dive down that rabbit hole, but yeah, I put a spirit box on at one point, and I don't know if it's true or not, but the entity, I asked if it was that hole in the wall was because of the bullet hole, and he came through saying no. So I don't know if it is or not, but I mean, a lot of the stories that the location, the owners give you is also in theory too, because some places there isn't a lot of history.
No,
The one place we're going,
it starts off as in theory, but then it turns into an actual solidified story. I know plenty of people who have it so rehearsed onto something. Actually, a long time ago, I had a person who ran a haunted house. They had their story so rehearsed where I was sitting there like, but what about this and what about this? And there was like no answer to it. It was kind of like hesitation. You realize like, oh, you're just like you're giving it like if I was a fucking tourist coming in and like
Mhm.
hearing your speech. And sometimes that really affects history, man. Next thing you know, your kids take over the business or something like that, and they keep reiterating that story and they think it's 100% true. I mean, half the time you got to really stop and realize, did I remember it correctly? Like, did I actually go to that basketball game with Michael Jordan? I don't think so. Never been to a basketball game.
I've heard you talk about that before. But no, I mean, you're doing exactly the right thing. You ask questions, and that's what the whole paranormal investigation thing is asking why. That's what separates the investigators from the ghost hunters is you ask why, you ask who did it. what's going on here. And I think that's part of it too, is you use your evidence to try to either support or debunk the stories or the history that is known at a location.
But your brain's trying to problem solve, and it's looking at this as a problem rather than just a mystery. Like a mystery,
Yes.
in a sense, when I say the word mystery, people think, oh, that's something you have to solve. Like it's a fucking equation. And I mean, that's why those games on like Big Fish, whatever that fucking game thing is, you can get on your computer where you like, Madam Fortune Teller's Mystical Carnival of Mystery, find it. And then you click and play the game and you have to click all the fucking things and it'll give you a list of the stuff. Like there's a magnifying glass, there's a crystal ball, there's all this stuff. And you're looking around this room littered with shit that you'd click. I played the shit out of those when I was a kid. Because I was always like, holy shit, next level. But it's the idea of being skeptic, I think, is very, very important because I don't think there's any, I guess, definitive answers in life. Maybe the
Mhm.
only definitive is death, but I feel like the idea
In
that,
Texas.
yeah, that's true. Um, until the world dies. Um, but I think when we talk about like the idea of like spiritual, the idea of paranormal, maybe it's all the same exact thing, and we're just trying to see different sides of it. Like I think that's the most important thing. Like why I like talking about aliens so much, why I like talking about all these things that you really can't see because they're mysteries, because they're so fucking fascinating. And I mean, are they really that far off them throughout history? I mean, history has always talked about the afterlife. I mean, what's your vision of afterlife? For me, it's just a place where you don't feel like you need to be anywhere. Everything feels numb. Everything feels like you just don't feel anything. And I feel like that's probably like what the closest idea to afterlife in my vision is. People are like, oh, no, you feel happiness. I'm like, how do you know though? Like happiness is an emotion that people can't even remember, but feeling nothing, feeling like time, like there's no need to run out of the house because you're late for work, feeling like you don't have to make money because you have bills to pay. Just being in that moment. That's probably the biggest gift that any some type of creature that created mankind or whatever you want to say would ever want to give you is the feeling that you don't have to do anything. You can just be here.
Yeah, yeah, I agree to an extent. I mean, everybody has their own theories on the afterlife. One key thing out of that whole spiel that you just did is mystery. That's what I when we did that tour at Greenville and they talked about that room with the dark entity. I'm like, I love mysteries. I love being able to offer theories, and that's what every documentary that I put out, except for the first one, did have a theory on one of the mysteries of the location. And that's definitely key as far as the afterlife goes and what we're interacting with and everything. I think I told you before, one of my theories is when you pass away, your energy just shoots out, and whether you believe in reincarnation, heaven, hell, whatever, your energy leaves your body. And what we're interacting with as paranormal investigators is the residual energy that's left behind from that happening, from it leaving your body.
Do you also think that maybe a good reason to have a lot of people with you when you do these? I know people always talk about like, well, sometimes they only contact you when you're by yourself. Yeah, but I feel like if you have more people there, you're going to see our brains are so weird where I wonder with hallucinations, for instance, like eyeshadow hallucination, where you see shadowy figures in the corner of your room, man, maybe that can affect your hearing as well too. Maybe that can just your brain can create something much like your dreams can. Nobody can explain their dreams. They can tell you what happened in them, but what is that brain reaction chemical? I've talked to neuroscientists who can explain it to a science, but even there's still questions of like this one tissue just doesn't reanimate. It doesn't, this is the one side of the brain that just does not come back. Brain tissue is the weirdest fucking sponge-like substance you will ever, I guess, come across. If you end up killing someone and chopping their head off and looking at it. Or you study the brain. But
Yeah,
I think the reason that's a good reason to have a lot of people with you when you go on these adventures is that you're necessarily not really, I mean, you're probably secluding maybe if a ghost is shy and they want to interact with just one person rather to many, but I feel like it's also not creating any illusions and it's kind of ruling those out. Now, one person, like the only time you one or a group of people ever experience the same exact thing is if it is real in this real matter world that we know so far as to be real, but also like we could be in the Matrix. Think about it. Like
yeah, we could be.
could
I
be.
mean,
But group highs, when people take psychedelics, they kind of experience the same trip because the energy that you guys give off, you kind of hit the same frequency, much like a conversation, you hit the same frequency after a while. But when you're in like a haunted location with a bunch of people, you're now ruling out the fact that if something does contact you, you do hear something, you get footage of something. There's not a mess up because now you have other people to collaborate or be able to say, hey, this did happen. I was there. We all experienced and we all saw this thing.
Well, I mean, I think that's why you have to record things. You have to be able to, obtain the evidence so that you can go back. But we don't always, I mean, a lot of the times when we go to these locations, we do group sessions. But a lot of times, I mean, we do solo sessions as well. I mean, in that negative room, I did a 45-minute session by myself earlier in the night and was getting amazing responses with the flashlight and spirit box and just general noises and whatnot. And just because I'm there by myself doesn't mean it's necessarily in my head, because I'm also recording it. And a lot of the stuff, when you're recording it on video, a lot of the stuff, I mean, I told you this before with the spirit box, and especially, you don't hear it live a lot of the times. A lot of the times it's when you're reviewing your evidence and your recordings is when you're like, oh shit, it said that. Oh, I wish I would have heard that, because I would have responded this way and took the conversation this way. So that's the one, I would say, downfall with the current technology in the paranormal field, is a lot of it, you don't really hear it live until you're reviewing your evidence and you're like, damn, we could have had like a way better conversation. And that's just unfortunate. But I do think as technology advances, I think that eventually you'll be able to hear things live. I also think that eventually, if things keep going in the direction that they are, I think you'll be able to use paranormal investigation as a tool to solve murders, as a tool to communicate with the dead. Say, hey, who the fuck killed you? Okay, that person. And you can, catch that person and gather more evidence. And I think that's where eventually the field is going to go, as long as they, people continue to take a scientific approach to it rather than just ghost hunting.
Do you think that there's, I guess, research or studies being done in that specific field? Like, for instance, like the UFO people do not like when you link in the supernatural, but it always commonly gets linked a lot of times, especially when it comes to like broadband people who are researching this. But with the 760 something billion dollars that just went to like a whole department of not billion, it might be million, for Joe Biden did for the UAP surveillance and all those types of monitoring systems that just I think was created in December or January. Do you think that technologies, when you say it's going to advance, it's going to get better, do you think that's just going to be from, I guess, accidental, like her phone videos, for instance? Now that the cameras are getting better, you're able to take a better picture of the moon. Do you think that's how it's going to happen? Or do you think there's actually, now that there's interest in the UAP stuff and the government's talking about it, and now they're making a branch to kind of check that out? Do you think that now the government might be like, well, fuck, let's check the paranormal too? Like, that's kind of important as well, too. Imagine if there is an afterlife, For me, a cool theory, like I was saying, a conspiracy theory earlier, they're talking about multiverses, types of different things, and everyone goes, oh, Spider-Man. No, I'm talking about actual
Yeah,
multiverses
yeah.
and other dimensions that are out there. Maybe that's the frequency bleeding in, and what you think is like a ghost or this person that died is really just another land or another dimension that is somehow seeping through. I have no clue. But you have to think, after all the studies that we've probably done, whether it was a nuke or whether it was whatever, there's someone out there testing something they shouldn't be testing, and maybe it's a matter of dark matter up in space. Eventually, you get a solar flare or some type of energy that somehow is like, oh, the next week is going to be hotter because the sun's going through some type of solar flare. It's like, well, what else is that doing? Is that just frying our brains, or is that just doing something where it might be messing with the balance of this dimension that we're in? There's a whole bunch of things that we don't know. And I like this idea, and this kind of like, I know it sounds like that's crazy, man. It's good to think crazy sometimes, because sometimes that outside kind of thought, like why I like conspiracy theories so much, at least someone's fucking thinking about it. Like, I hate to be that guy, but I'm happy that that person's wondering about all the 5 vans in our fucking neighborhood, rather than me just walking by all lottie fucking da with a Tootsie Pop hanging out of my fucking mouth.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, the multiverse is one thing that I also have talked about on other podcasts. It is very possible that it is bleed through from another dimension. I agree with that 100%. It's kind of weird that they're communicating with us when we seek it, but how are we communicating with them? One thing that I always thought is maybe it's either a multiverse or maybe it's a time parallel aspect where, you know, a lot of the times we go to these locations and we're actually interacting with people that previously lived there. Maybe they're sleeping and they're in their time. You know how people talk in their sleep. Maybe that's when we catch them, is when they're sleeping, and that's how we're intelligently able to communicate with them. Because I don't know. I mean, maybe people are communicating with us too. My wife talks in her sleep. Who the fuck knows? But I know personally, outside of when I do paranormal investigations, I don't have just voices come up and show up and talk to me as if, you know, like if someone from another dimension is also doing paranormal investigation and trying to communicate. I never had that happen.
Well, my little thought went in two different directions. One is like the example I would use. If I told you right now, raise your hand. Okay. So as you did that, as soon as your hand went up to its top peak point, imagine in another timeline or another dimension that's a subset dimension. And the way that they explain these dimensions is the idea that like they're slightly off. They're not exactly the same, but they think there's multiple dimensions. But let's say this is dimension A, their dimension B. It's just slightly different. Like instead of wearing a white shirt, you're wearing a different shirt. When you raise your hand and hit that top peak, imagine when I said raise your hand, I didn't tell you left or right. So in dimension A, you raise your left hand. In the dimension B, you raise your right hand. But imagine if those moments, you ever like people chalk this up to ghost or paranormal experiences. You're sitting in a room and you feel like someone's watching you, or you feel like you heard something that's not there. Like for after a while, I was working at a hotel for like 3 years, and I would be in my room and I would hear someone shout like it was on the radio saying my name, because that's how they would call you on the radio. It's a common thing if you're around like walkie talkies and you do that shit for a long time. Eventually, even if you don't have one, you end up fucking hearing it just for like,
Yeah.
it's small. It doesn't last that long. Um, I start wondering, maybe that voice is someone having a conversation in another dimension, because then the dimension A, just like dimension B, instead of raising different hands, you both at the same time that I said that raised the same exact hand, and that timeline, that frequency hit the same exact code, like ones and zeros. Eventually, you can unlock something by having a random number generator keep going, going, and going until all the numbers line up to the exact number. Maybe it's
Yeah.
like that. And then that's when you're sitting there and you're seeing like not really two of you, but like it looks like there's like, is it blurry vision? But it's like because your frequencies somehow they all matched at the perfect timing and aligned in the right way. I mean, nobody still explains spontaneously combusting. That's a real fucking thing. And that was a fear when I was a kid, of randomly you would just burst into flames. Now
I had that fear too.
there's ideas that that's like a government type tech thing, because they're able to manipulate the weather. The CIA has admitted to doing that, which brings in a whole world catastrophe instance. But also they use sound as a weapon as well, to a certain frequency, which you can really kind of rationalize with cicadas. People think like, cicada noise is fucking annoying. There's like talks and like there's old projects and stuff of using like a type of weapon that can sound like a cicada to be able to blow someone's brain apart. But I
Oh,
start going,
we'd be fucked here in Western PA
oh,
because there's
dude,
a lot of
they're
cicadas.
fucking nuts, man. I'm telling you. And they're crazy looking. Um,
Yeah.
but it hits a different thing when I start wondering about that frequency, for instance. Like that frequency, people talk about it like you have to give a positive frequency or hit the same vibrations. If that's all scientifically proven and true, then how sensitive is that and how far does it go? Like I just picture a timeline that's really fucking long, and there's like multiple branches off that timeline, like the Loki thing with all the different variants and all that.
Mhm.
That's gotta be real, and I'm wondering if we're gonna have to look to Marvel movies or Disney productions
Disney knows.
or just to be able to get more research into this. Because half the time, the thought used to be that the the movies were made off of like government stuff or actual things. Now it seems like it's the other way around. The government's like, that's a good invention. Let's fucking research that. And then now they're researching multi dimensions, all because Spider-Man and Tom Holland, Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire.
You.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, it's just a weird thought that I had out there, and I forgot the other idea that came into my head when you were saying what you were saying.
Well, the multiverse thing too, instead of looking at it as dimension A is me going like this, dimension B is me going like this. What if dimension A is where we're at, but dimension B is in, 1800s? And that's why we're able to communicate using paranormal investigation with those people. It's not that, the dimensions line up like time parallel, because the times could be different in each dimension. And that's what's bleeding through, like you said.
Well, I'm talking to fucking Avi Loeb and he's talking about dimensions. And I'm like, what? Like, it's talked about with people like me and you, but when an actual scientist is talking about researching into these dimensions, it starts to get a little bit more real, I would say, in a sense.
Yeah. And if he's talking about that, there's higher intelligence than me looking at paranormal stuff too.
Well, that's the theory, like, of aliens and stuff like that. Do I mean, I don't know.
I think it does coincide with one another, because I can never remember the guy's name. We talked about it last time. I think, is it Scott Campbell, the UAB guy? Is that his name?
It's Campbell. That's his name, is Campbell.
Campbell. Okay. He mentioned about electromagnetic energy being a possibility with UFOs. And that's another possibility with the paranormal as well, is a lot of times you'll feel the static, just the energy in a room. And it's always theorized that it's electromagnetic energy. And I'm actually going to try to do a science experiment at one of the locations coming up, trying to manipulate electromagnetic energy in different frequencies to try to get something to manifest.
It says we currently have no evidence that multiverses exist, and everything we can see suggests there is just one universe, our own. And that came out November 3rd, 2021. But then
Well, I mean,
I swear I've heard people talk about it, though.
well, it's hard to say because it's not definitive yet that there is multiple universes or dimensions. It's still a theory, or a hypothesis, I should say.
Well, people are still looking into it, though. That's the thing, is that
Yeah,
they're researching
for
to see
sure.
I mean, everything that we have science-wise, everything that we know as fact is all that we know now. We don't know what's going to be in the next year or so. I think the pandemic has shown everybody that shit. Here's the real. So this says on the same exact website on May 22nd. So this was, I guess, this is 2020. It says every time tabloids and social media dramatically mishandle a science news story, the urge to unplug the internet and plug it back in again is excruciatingly strong. If you've heard the recent claim that NASA detected a parallel universe in Antarctica where time runs backwards, we're glad that you've now clicked on this article. Strap yourselves in for the truth. It seems that this tabloid science story, some speculative theoretical physics, which might have distant roots and plausibility, was amplified for seasonal reasons. University of Hawaii at Manoa experimental particle physicist Peter Gorham told Science Alert, the Argus paranormal universe detected nonsense started out innocently enough. So I guess that's not true either. That just, because if you like, I'll pull up NASA's website real quick. They have a lot of things on there that are really fucking interesting. Like, NASA has multiple Twitters for exoplanets. NASA has Twitters for space dimensions and all these types of things, where you start going like, what the you guys are more interesting than I thought. And also, how big is your fucking budget? Like, you got a lot of categories. Like, I don't see people working for free.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, I don't know what their budget is personally, but I would assume that it's probably not enough. I would assume that the bigger budgets are geared towards war and internal conflict. When I say internal, I mean planetarial. But I feel like we should be putting more money towards trying to discover multiverses, trying to discover extraterrestrial life. I think that not enough is being put into the sciences, but it is crazy that they have that many divisions in NASA, but it's still not enough in my opinion.
See, it says right here on NASA's website, a higher dimensional universe. Does our universe have higher but unusual spatial dimensions? The idea has been gaining popularity to help explain why vastly separated parts of our universe appear so similar, and why the geometry of our universe does not seem to result naturally from the amounts of matter it seems to contain. The idea is so prevalent in modern attempts to combine gravity and quantum mechanics that include M theory. See, this is what I don't like, is that these theories go into fucking, it's like B theory, A theory. So M theory is
Yeah.
a theory in physics that unifies all consistent versions of superstring theory. Edward Ritten first conjectured the existence of such a theory at a string theory conference. That's what that's where they fucking lose me. Like you get one theory that links into another theory that links into another theory and links into another theory. I'm like, I love it. I love the ideas. I love that conspiratorial or that other type of thinking out there. But you don't make it easy for a common, like, there's a whole thing on Twitter called citizen scientists.
No, I didn't. I don't go on Twitter ever.
That's fucking scary to me. Citizen scientists, where it's like people doing their own research and something they come across is actually interesting to where a scientist actually validates it and calls them a citizen scientist. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, we're entering some weird territory.
Well, I mean, that's essentially what we're doing with paranormal investigations. I mean, we're pretty much citizen scientists. I'm not getting paid for the shit, you know.
I know, but I don't trust a toilet Googler. I trust you because you're actually going to these places.
A toilet Googler.
That's what they are. Is everyone's a
Yeah.
fucking toilet Googler now. And I mean, good for the internet to be able to give people those types of things, but
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's diving into those theories. I mean, when theory A equals, you have to go back to theory B to theory Z, just like you just did. I mean, if someone's willing to take the time to dive down each rabbit hole, I'd say good for them. And if there is some intelligence to what they're doing and scientists want to kind of research, I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that we have regular people like you and I just asking why. What the hell was that noise?
it's me going, I was trying to think. Because I'm coming across, I remember coming across this on the CIA website one time where they were talking about CIA releases 13M pages of declassified documents online, but there was one where they were talking about how to escape. That's what it was. Okay, so this was in February of last year. It's on Vice, so take that for what you want.
Yeah, that seems like a legit news source.
Well, they're like the New York Post kind of in a way, but I would say they're more like sometimes they talk about teen pregnancy and stuff. And like, I don't want to hear that. In the 80s, the spy agency investigated the gateway experience technique to alter consciousness and ultimately escape space-time. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay. So you heard of the gateway. It didn't register at the moment. She continued. It's blowing up on TikTok. Later on, she elaborated. It's not the fact that ill-fated 90s computers hardware company folks were freaking out about. No, they've gone further back in time to find a true treasure of functional media. The intrigue revolves around a classified 1983 CIA report on a technique called the gateway experience, which is a training system designed to focus brainwave output to alter consciousness and ultimately escape the restrictions of time and space. Hold the fucking phone.
Wow.
I'm happy that the CIA is doing this, but Jesus Christ, can you help eliminate some of the bots on Twitter? Like fucking A, man. You know how many people look at my story on Instagram that are just like sex video 18? I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
You're not a real person. So
we just got our first review on our Facebook page, and it talked. I forget what it was. It was like Dr. Ambia says this, and I'm like, yeah, it seems legit.
So the timeline is 1950s. Robert Monroe, a radio broadcasting executive, begins producing evidence that specific sound patterns have identifiable effects on human capabilities. These include alertness, sleepiness, and expanded states of consciousness. In 1956, Monroe forms an R&D division inside his radio program production corporation, RAM Enterprises. The goal is to study sound effects on human consciousness. He was observed with sleep learning. Okay, so this leads into MK Ultra, because I've talked about this before, a specific topic. Candy Jones, if you look her up, she was on a radio show and they hypnotized her, and there's footage of her infiltrating a military base, and she's an actress, and she's like, what the fuck, that's me, unless they copied her face, but she doesn't remember doing these things. And then I guess they brought someone in on the radio show to re-hypnotize her to trigger the key words and show that she was hypnotized before somewhere. And that kind of leads into like where the government was drugging people and stuff like that and making them do a bunch of stuff, leads into Manson and all that. But MK Ultra, which the CIA just recently released a bunch of documents on it too. I don't know if have you ever seen the MK Ultra documents before?
I never saw the doc. I saw the movie. I never saw the documents though.
Hold on one second.
But the thing that interests me in what you just pulled up is they are using radio frequencies in order to do that. And I do think that a lot of things can be unlocked with certain vibrations. And I think that's a lot of what the paranormal and everything is. It's just different vibrations.
Should we hit NPR?
NPR, do what you want to do.
Do you trust them?
Eh, I don't know. I have a journalism degree, but I'll be honest with you. I don't even follow the news whatsoever. So
Do you entrust anything with a .gov after it?
it's not really. I don't trust mostly anything I see. But pull it up. We'll see what they say.
Because I'm looking at one from .gov right now, or I can go to the NPR one. But NPR one seems like a lot of people don't really like. Okay, so the MK Ultra one I just pulled up is. I'll pull up the NPR one, and then we'll go into another.
All right.
Because this leads in. If you ever seen the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, this leads all into that.
Oh yes, yes.
So MK Ultra, which operated from the 1950s until the early 60s, was created and run by a chemist named Sidney Gotheb. Journalist Stephen Kinzer, who spent several years investigating the program, calls the operation the most sustained search in history for techniques of mind control. Some of Gotheb's experiments were covertly funded at universities and research centers, Kinzer says, while others were conducted in American prisons and in detention centers in Japan, Germany, and the Philippines. Many of his unwitting subjects endured psychological torture ranging from electroshock to high doses of LSD, according to Kinzer's research. So it even goes down here, goes on how the CIA brought LSD to America. As part of the search for drugs that would allow people to control the human mind, CIA scientists became aware of the existence of LSD, and this became an obsession for the early directors of MK Ultra. Actually, the MK Ultra director, Sidney Gotheb, can now be seen as the man who brought LSD to America. He was unwitting godfather of the entire LSD counterculture. And in the early 1950s, he arranged for the CIA to pay $240,000 to buy the world's entire supply of LSD. He brought this to the United States and began spreading it around to hospitals, clinics, prisons, and other institutions, asking them through bogus foundations to carry out research projects and find out what LSD was and how people reacted to it, how it might be able to use for a tool for mind control. Now, the people who volunteered for these experiments and began taking LSD in many cases found it very pleasurable. They told their friends about it. I mean, come on. It had to be fucking pleasurable. It's LSD, man.
Yeah,
They
definitely.
told their friends about it, who were these people. Ken Kenzie, the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, got his LSD in an experiment sponsored by CIA, by MK Ultra, by Sidney Gotheb. So did Robert Hunter, the lyricist for the Grateful Dead, which he became a great purveyor of LSD culture. Now, Robert Hunter, created 50,000 tablets of LSD. A lot of people don't know about as well, too. Actually, they say that's why it sounds so good with the music. Like, a lot of people who take LSD like to listen to fucking Grateful Dead. He had some type of amplifier that would be able to make you feel something when you were on that specific drug, and like the music, I guess, lines up to it perfectly or something like that. But without getting into like on CIA hiring Nazi
Is this
doctors.
going to end up leading to
Hold
Manson?
on, look at this one. Fucking A. The CIA mind control project MK Ultra was essentially a continuation of work that began in Japanese and Nazi concentration camps. Not only was it roughly based on those experiments, but the CIA actually hired the vivisectionists and torturers who had worked in Japan and Nazi concentration camps to come out and explain what they found, also how we could build on their research. That is exactly what the Nuremberg trials were.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I'm sorry if we went off the ghost rabbit hole, but to think that our brains are not being slowly manipulated, this is why people fucking think that, what is it? What are the chemicals that people think chemtrails? This is why people think chemtrails exist, because this type of shit, you never know,
Mm-hmm.
man. If one day someone triggers you, I mean, do you know that you're not hypnotized right now?
No, of course not. Yeah, I agree 100%. I can definitely see the MK Ultra thing definitely being legit. Especially, I know you've talked it before, and I've heard from other sources about the whole Manson thing, that the government was giving him LSD, and I can see that for sure.
Well, it sparks the anti-hippie movement. The anti-hippie movement was they were giving people drugs like randomly without them knowing. And then they were saying that, oh, it's these hippies that are doing this. They're all psychopaths and murderers and that all this. So you need to ban hippies. And then that's what sparked up that whole controversy when really it might have been just government created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I would always, I always thought of this like doing some kind of mind altering drug or something, and then going into a supposedly haunted location and seeing what would actually happen. But then I usually don't get terrified during investigations, but I feel like I would probably freak out at that point.
So, hold on real quick. I am going to this one. Here we go. I found it. Where are the actual documents this guy had? Here we go. So this was released through the Freedom of Information Act to the Black Vault website. But these are actual like fucking MK Ultra documents talking about MK Ultra advances in accountings documents. I don't think this is the right one that I was supposed to click. But there's a lot of talk about MK Ultra memos, all these newsletters that were getting passed back and forth between different places. Okay, yeah, I'm not going. This guy's fucking. I've
I
shit
was
on his
gonna
site
say
so many times.
you're gonna dive down all those rabbit holes there, Robbie.
Well, it's interesting because what they released was stuff from Russia and China, talking about how Russia and China were dealing with psychological types of manipulational tactics and mind control experiments as well too. And it's interesting where it's like you never said yourself, and we've known that you've done it. But I feel like the only way that they're ever going to tell you the truth is by not incriminating themselves, but in putting the blame on somebody else, much like most people do, is push the blame on something else.
Oh yeah.
Which I find interesting because I mean, to think that they're not dealing with that, like our brains are so fucking. That's why I get really skeptical with the paranormal stuff. As much as I want it to be true, or I have to come at it with an open mind because I don't know what our fucking brains can do, man. Maybe our brains can tap into another frequency, and much like we're talking about the other dimensions with raising your hand and all that. Maybe it's fucking astral projection when you sleep. Maybe you're going to another dimension or you're experiencing something that's as close to this. Or maybe it's just your brain going off on a type of thing. If you ask any neuroscientist like I have, how do you explain a dream? They can't. Their brain starts firing off in weird creativity ways. How can people create a song in a second? How can people know what words are going to come out of their mouth by thinking? What is thinking? Well, thinking is what you do to be able to make sure you're coming off clear and thorough. Fuck that. Just say it. What is it? What is that thing that your brain is doing right there? And how is it able to do that? And that is through development. But what is that development? And why does your brain evolve? That is very, very interesting to me, where I wonder how far we can push that. And I feel like people are already pushing it. And now we're starting to understand it because now we're researching more into it.
Yeah. And can your brain evolve to the point where you can actually manifest something like Slender Man? I mean, I look at that, and other cryptids.
Well,
Is it
Stranger
possible?
Things, that was based on a real actual thing, Project Hero, which was at
Mhm.
a satellite base that the government was experimenting on. There's an account story that they talked about that they did have children there that had head shaved, and they were testing them with drugs and all these types of things to try and rip open another dimension. And that's when the first talks of dimensions really came from. But people don't want to fund something that was linked in with children. So
Yeah.
it's just difficult. That's always the objective goal for a lot of people to use, is either an animal or a child, only because of the power aspect of things.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, a child is innocent enough to be, I feel, more open to, supernatural or any type of influence. Whereas adults, we build up walls to kind of cloud that. Um, but I mean, as far as things manifesting, I think it's possible. We can believe in something enough that it can be real. Same with like Bigfoot and Slender Man and all those different cryptids that are out there. I mean, a lot of them are based on Dungeons and Dragons. If you really look at it, a lot of the cryptids out there. And is it possible that those people playing the Dungeons and Dragons, or even that created Dungeons and Dragons, just thinking about those stuff, and now we're having sightings of these things? Is it possible that we've manifested those just using our brain and our thoughts?
What do you think is more likely, or what do you think our next possible step in brain evolution is? Do you think it's manifesting things, or do you think it's being able to kind of be able to read each other's thoughts?
I mean, it could be it could be anything. It could be being able to move things with your mind. I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know what our capabilities are right now. I mean, we could have that, all those powers right now. I mean, I forget what the percentage is, but we're only using a small percentage of our brain.
It's not true.
It's not true.
No, I've heard that debunked a couple of times before because I thought it was true too from the movie Lucy. But they were like, no, there's no, you're using actually a large portion of your brain. It's just about what's active in the moment that you're using it. It's kind of like you know that the train switched tracks, but you don't know when it did or how it did. You just know that you're not going straight anymore. You're now taking a small bend left. That's like your brain. You hear the sound, but you don't know what's making the sound. It's just doing it on its own. Like you don't think about breathing, do you?
No,
But
I
then
mean, unless I'm not breathing, then I'm like, oh shit.
yeah, but if you don't think about breathing, if I tell you to think about breathing, you start thinking about your breathing. Now you're not thinking about the other thing that you were doing before, which could have been you could have been thinking about nothing, or you could have been thinking about dimensions. You could have been thinking about that. That spontaneous change, it just happens naturally. You don't know it. And that's kind of like what our brains do. And now it's going to use a different percentage of your brain.
Do you feel in that case that we're using our full capabilities of our brain?
I think we don't know what the full capabilities are. And I feel like if you don't know what that is, then I feel like we definitely have like the idea, I guess I would say that is debunked is that you're not capable of using more. And I'm like, well, you're not capable of things you don't know. So if you don't go and look into your brain, then how would you know that there's that power that it has? I think these ideas of these psychic people or these people that can, not that person like when I'm driving my car, there's a place in my town that says psychic readings, and I just always laugh when I fucking see it. Because I'm like, a real psychic wouldn't be charging for their services. The people that are in true belief of it. Like I think I even used to shit on Reiki energy healing back in the day. I think it probably has some weight to it. I think there's definitely positive things that you can do. I've heard plenty of stories from people talking about these type of, you know, I guess putting your hands over someone and being able to heal. There's a woman, a popular, she's now the women's world champion in UFC. When she was getting fixed after having birth, like she wanted to recuperate to go right back into fighting and training. She had a person that was just doing positive healing, like with their hands over her stomach muscles and all these types of things. She healed in like 6 months. And she was like, I don't know how to explain it. And it just sounds woo woo when I was listening to it. I was like, what the fuck? That just sounds not right. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're in belief that it's going to work and the person that's doing it to you is in belief that it's going to work, does it work because it's natural? Like you're thinking it into existence? I mean, thinking something in reality, manifesting like we're talking about, there's positives and negatives. There's the hate and anger that can be strong as hell to be able to bring something out from another dimension. Or there's the love aspect of things, or just in belief that it's true. If I tell you it's raining outside, you don't have any windows and you live in a basement, you're probably more likely going to be like, it's probably raining outside. Like, so I'm not going to go
Yeah,
out. I'm just going to live my life in the basement for today.
that's true. I actually like that basement analogy. That's 100% correct.
Mm.
Um, as far as the like Reiki and all that stuff, I agree. I think if you believe it, then it can be true. 100%. I mean, there's people that believe that they can see spirits all the time, and they like what's her name, the shaman lady that came on and talked to several
Is that
people.
your favorite fucking episode?
Dude, I watched it like 3 times. I'm telling you, I bought her book. It
I
was,
know.
yeah. I mean, if she's believing that, then in her existence, that's happening,
Well,
whether we believe it or not.
that's my thing is after that episode, I got so many fucking questions from people like, how did you keep a straight face? Like, oh my God, like, do you really believe this type of thing? Is that how you're able to do it? Even criticisms and stuff. I go, imagine you're born and everyone tells you that you're going to be some type of like amazing psychic and you have some type of ability. Let's say you put your hand on a table that's slightly slanted because now the weight that's added to the table is now moving the cup closer to your hand. And you're thinking, I can use my mind powers to bring it closer. That just was a coincidence that just happened. But imagine her story, for example. I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm just saying my thought was when she said she went to the mountains and she got to sit down with some Native American people and they tell you that you're some type of ancient power or something like that. Now that's even more belief to your doubts that you had, where you go, oh my God, I must be. And then now you're going to start creating things with these mind, which leads down maybe a schizophrenia rabbit hole. That was my whole thing. If like, I had a past guest, Steve Cantwell, on here mentioned a bunch of times. But he was about to lose his faith. Like he was like, what's that? Nothing's getting done going my way. What's the point of praying to something? I was like, if you really exist, show me something. And he prayed. His son lost his favorite space pen, the indestructible ones, in the
Mhm.
snow. And he prayed to God to help him find his pen. And then they walked outside and there was a shiny thing in the snow, and it was his pen. You're looking for a sign of something that's going to save you at that point. So anything is a sign. That's the
Yeah.
thing, is like you eventually start seeing it everywhere after just wanting something, because you don't necessarily want to lose that. You just want something to give you hope. And hope is something that's so fucking powerful, where it leads people maybe necessarily to think that Pizzagate's fucking real. I don't know. Like that's where it goes. That's why I like to understand our brains a little bit more, because I think these psychic people, I don't think they're all bullshit. I think a lot of them have a different kind of energy or some type of thing. Like, for instance, I've had so many conversations with people. I mean, in a sense, it's remarkable, but the energy, man, I can sense someone's energy of like where to go with the conversation. I get right now we're completely derailed off the spiritual thing, but I think we're going down a different thing. But also at the same time, I want to fall back to it because I know that's what we wanted to talk about and stuff too. But it just leads down a
We have
different
no
thing.
agenda.
Yeah.
There's no agenda here.
But I can tell when you can tell when someone's getting uncomfortable. And a lot of people go, how do you know? It's like, you can't feel that. Like the air just felt like it got sucked out of the fucking room, man. Like there's a different energy in the house. There's a different energy in the room. There's a different energy that's going on between the connection that we're having. And I think that's going to be only get stronger. Hopefully not by human advancement with tech. I think it's going to get stronger naturally. Like there's a natural evolutionary process between people. And I just wonder what that next thing is going to be. I think if you're going to have people hopping dimensions, you're going to have people that are going to see their life in another dimension that's 1,000 times better with a supermodel wife. And then you're going to have interdimensional murders because that person's going to want to kill their other
And take their
self.
place.
Yeah.
Well, I think you just developed a really, really good sci-fi movie for sure.
It's probably a fucking Black Mirror episode. Anytime I say anything, everyone's like,
Probably.
that's a Black Mirror episode. I'm like, fucking.
If it's a Black Mirror episode, put it in the comments so we know. Because if not, I'm telling you, we should write that shit.
So, hold on. I'm trying to find that fucking, because I know I have tweets with a lot of like UFO and all this type of thing. I'm trying to find that fucking CIA thing so see I can send it to my computer to be able to fucking pull up on here.
But yeah, that with your buddy finding that pen, is that a coincidence? Probably, or you could interpret it as a sign. That's how I was actually reading a book on the occult when we were at the hospital because we had a scare that our son was coming a little early. So I brought a book with me just in case so we could wait. He didn't end up coming that day, but they started talking about coincidences in the book. And one of the stories was a guy had a premonition as he was driving. He was going around the bend and they wrecked. And then that premonition, like it boomed, like just like Final Destination. He came back to and he was like, oh shit, we're going around that same bend. And they did end up wrecking. Was it a coincidence or was it a premonition? And then I started noticing more coincidences where when we were in the waiting room when I read that, and while we were sitting there, a guy comes out right after I read that segment talking about being in a car accident going around a bend, and he's on his cell phone telling his insurance company or whatever. And then we go into the actual the room where she was going to get checked out, and she said, the nurse said, oh, what's your names? And we're like, Mike and Hannah. And she's like, oh wow, I don't have to change the board because the prior people that were in there were Mike and Hannah. And I was like, what the hell is going on? This is crazy. So
the craziest one I've ever heard was when I was doing the 9/11 episode. I came across a story between it was from the daughter's I guess story that she said. But the interview, she was talking about how her parents were like getting ready to have a divorce before she was born. And they were like, just like, it's not going to work out, but we need to talk about our marriage. And they both worked at one of the towers that was hit by the plane and crashed. Um, and they talked about how they went across the street to the park, and they sat there and talked about their marriage. They were like, we're gonna be like 10 minutes late to work. Let's just talk this out and figure out if this is gonna go any farther, or should we just give up now? And at that point, they're basically looking for like God to save their marriage. And this fucking airplane goes right into the fucking building, dude. And they watched it. And they're like, is
Mhm.
it they took it as a sign that they need to break up rather than a sign that they need to stay together, when a lot of people would take it as a sign that they need to stay together. I mean, that's a coincidence, but people take it in the way that they want to see it, because you're looking for anything. You're looking for a sign. When people ask for a sign, they don't just want to get fucking nothing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, because that could be interpreted. I remember that story too. But they could have interpreted it at, hey, we need to stay together, but instead they took it as a sign to separate. And that's true. I think coincidences are also based on interpretation, whatever signs you want to get from that coincidence that occurs, or
I
that
just,
event that occurs.
what do you think life is though? Do you look at it as more of a spiritual type thing? Do you think it's more of like or do you like the energy aspect, the more scientific type thing?
I'm probably more on the energy side of things. I do feel that I'm open to the spiritual side, but I would say that I'm more, especially doing this, more in belief that we are just energy, and when we die, kind of like Star Wars, we go and join the Force, and whether that's heaven, hell, whatever your belief is. But I do feel that either way, no matter what your belief is, heaven, hell, reincarnation, there's definitely an energy aspect to it and a vibrational aspect.
What's the next hunt you guys are going on, or the next investigate? I like more paranormal investigator. I don't like ghost hunter.
Yeah, I don't like Ghost Hunter at all. I hate that term.
Okay. Paranormal
Um,
investigator sounds more professional. Like you need to have a business card and a fucking suit with a black Cadillac and a white hat.
yeah, exactly. Like I don't know. I always feel like I'm a detective going in. Like I'm fucking the paranormal Dick Tracy. Like I'm trying to solve some kind of crazy mystery. But next one we're going to is actually an antique store. I don't remember the name of it. Sean set it up because he was a paranormal consultant for a movie regarding a paranormal investigation team. So he got the in on that. Then after that, we're going to that's in February, I think the end of February. Then we're doing Crescent Sanatorium. It's a former tuberculosis hospital as well as a former prison. So they got both aspects of fun there. That one's in March. And then we're doing the Monroe House in June, which is going to be where I think I'm going to try my paranormal investigation with electromagnetic energy. That place is dark. I'm calling it our demonic end of the year because we're doing that as well as the Bel Air House again. We're doing a return there. Both have very negative aspects to them, which I just love. But the Monroe House, they actually found bones underneath. I think it was the porch area in the basement. So it's kind of a weird, dark vibe to it.
I'm now starting to realize where the drug thing came from of MK Ultra, because you're talking about investigating prisons, and imagine they drug prisons without the prisoners fucking knowing. Like, I wonder, that's
Mm.
probably like, do you believe that it's more about a haunted place, or do you think an item can be haunted as well too?
Oh, I feel like an item can definitely have an attachment to it. I mean, there's haunted dolls, there's
If that's
haunted
true, then how come
hearses.
Anne Frank hasn't been pissed that everyone's reading her fucking diary?
Anne Frank, you coincidentally, Anne Frank, or no, it's not Anne Frank, it's Anne Rice. I'm thinking of. Never mind. I was gonna say we investigated a church that has the Anne Rice doll collection there. Um, that's actually going to be our next documentary that we're
Why is it
releasing here
always
shortly.
fucking dolls? Is that because they look like people? They have eyes and shit, and it's just
I
able to move
guess.
it
I mean, we
easily?
didn't get any activity on the dolls themselves or anything like that, but yeah, I guess. I don't know. I mean, why I was freaked out. I don't know if you saw the video I posted. I was getting ready to work out, and I always work out at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning before work. And the one morning I kept hearing this giggling coming from the closet in my basement. It's a pretty creepy looking closet. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And it's like so early, and I'm not in investigation mode, so I was kind of creeped out. So I went into the closet and I kept hearing it and I couldn't find what it was. And eventually I found this creepy fucking doll that I think it was Hannah's niece's or something, and it just creeped me the fuck out. But
I've only been scared recently one time from a dream. I've said it once on the show so far, but I can tell you it real quick. I had a dream and I've already figured it out with my brain. So I always leave like my little lamp light on just because when I get up in the middle of the night, I got shit on the floor. I don't want to fucking bump my toes. Like I can turn off the light, actually get better sleep that way anyway. But it was a
Hmm.
full moon outside. And maybe that's why I dreamed a little bit crazy. People talk about that. Just everyone has weird dreams when it's like a full moon or something like that. But I always keep my closet closed because all my clothes are on a chair in my room. So there's no need to go in the closet. So the closet's just always closed. But I had this fucking crazy ass dream. And like towards the end of the dream, there's this grudge like creature that came out of my fucking closet. Like it was my exact room. Like I was awake and came out of the fucking closet, hopped up on the ceiling. And I mean, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Just started beating the shit out of me. I mean, fucking scratching the hell out of me. And then I woke up and I was like, what the fuck? I woke up. My closet door was opened, which is how like exactly how I woke up was exactly how my dream was, where I woke up and I see
Yeah.
this closet door open and this thing comes out. And I was like, oh fuck, like did I just predict the future? Because I've known to get like deja vu a lot and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. You've told me some of the stuff you've had.
But this fucking thing, I was looking at my closet door, like, you better get like I literally was at a point where my heart was racing, and I was like, if you're fucking in there, get the fuck out. Like I was gonna shout that because I was like, I know
Yeah.
you're in there. Um, and in the dream, the thing came out, jumped on the ceiling, and then it started attacking me. I looked down at my hand. In real life, I woke up now. My light was off, like the lamp was off. It's never fucking off. I have where this black curtain was that used to be my background for my showroom
Hmm.
on the before I hit the 1,000 mark. That is a blackout curtain. I replaced that from the one in my room where there's a bed sheet hanging in my room now just to cover the giant fucking window. And the light was coming through, so I could still see. Like it was the giant full moon light that was coming in. So it was like a whitish, bluish type thing. And I'm like, why the fuck is that lamp off? And I looked down at my arm, and my arm had fucking deep scratches in it.
Ooh.
And I was like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, was that fucking real? And like, I don't know what that was, but then I started like kind of analyzing it in my brain. What do you think that was?
I mean, do you feel like you could have scratched yourself in your sleep,
I,
knowing that you're trying to fight off this little girl that was died in a well or whatever?
that's what I thought. But what I figured it out was my lamp, the fuse on like the actual screw to the light switch of it, because it's on like it's one of those like roll up things where you roll it and it switches and flicks. It's loose. So if you don't have it right, it ends up the light can just go out in the middle of the night or something like that. So you have to just like close it. I gotta get a screw and tighten it, but I'm lazy as shit. Um Lazy when it comes to productive things that are outside the show. But
Yeah, yeah.
I was so that's why that light was off. But with the closet door open, I guess I had it cracked from I don't know. And my AC when it kicked on must have
Blew the door
pushed
open.
like, just enough it caught it at an angle. But the scratch, I think it was that night I had washed my bed sheets, and I think that it was the fabric softener that just scratched the shit out of me or something like that, or something like that's what I come to the conclusion was, because I don't know what that was. If that was something from the other side communicating like loved ones and stuff like that, I don't know, because I mean, it was weird. So my uncle passed unexpectedly. He wasn't sick or anything, just passed. But they didn't find him until like a couple days later, like because
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
someone had to check on him. And 2 nights before we found out, I had a dream about him, like a really intense like dream. I was like, I never fucking dream about people, so it was just weird. And then 2 days later, we find out, and then I was like, I had a dream about that's just weird. Where it's like, what is that?
Hmm.
Like that's always like I've told you a couple of my paranormal experiences before, but that was one like that too. And a lot of times when I have these types of dreams, there are real scenarios that happen. Like there's a white deer that I saw in my dream, like kind of like the Harry Potter Expecto Patronus. And I remember it jumping through my car, and I felt all my ribs and everything tighten up. And then it went out the back. And as I looked out the back, I looked down and to like from the rear view, and right in front of me was a semi, and it hit me, and the dream was over with. Then that
Jesus.
actual scenario happened. It snowed and a deer jumped across the fucking road the next night when I was going to the gym at 4:30 in the morning. And I just started getting deja vu right before it happened. I started slowing down. The deer jumped right in front of my car. Then not even a minute later, I'm like, holy fucking shit. And then a minute later, there's a giant semi truck that started driving by. And I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, that's really like coincidental, but everything was so dark and my night vision's like shit. And my headlights
Mhm.
is a 2000 car, so they're not bright. So I didn't see any colors of what that truck looked like if it matched the one in the dream. It was just the objects, like the blob figures of them that I could be able to make out, like not in excruciating detail. But that's always how my dreams have been. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck is that shit?
Well, I mean, you told me before in the past about your mom having that dream about the little
Sarah
girl.
Foxwell.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe you had inherited that, and I think you said your grandmother had
Yeah.
had
She
situations like that as
she
well.
apparently could talk to dead people, but she's like me. I don't like talking about it, but I might as well just put all my weird shit out in the fucking bag and hand it to you. Um, I
Dude, I mean, I talk to dead people and film it. So
yeah.
like, if you're gonna get weird, get weird.
So it's kind of like I don't like it because nobody who hasn't experienced something like that, like I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I can just tell you what I've seen. But
Yeah,
we were cleaning out my uncle's house, and not even like it wasn't that same dream the 2 nights before, but a dream prior where I was in that same exact house and I've never been to his house before. That was my very first time being there, was cleaning out all of his stuff. And I was like, the way that I have the dream is I'm floating over myself. Like I'm able to fly around the fucking room like a camera, but I
yeah,
can't, I'm not in my actual body. And that's the dream I had. I was like, I was getting deja vu in his house. And they're like, you've never been here before. I was like, I fucking know. That's the crazy thing. And then it's like, it's a weird thing where everyone's kind of like really quiet about it because they know like everyone's had their own experience in my family with something they can't fucking explain. And everyone
yeah.
has that belief in like God. Like that's the one thing that gets me is when people are like, oh, he's in a better place. I'm like, I'm not religious. Can you not relate everything to the devil or like all that type of stuff? Like it phases right through me, but you nod your head and say, okay,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, either way, you like to hope that they're, somewhere better.
sure. I mean, I hope when I go, I'm just gone. I do believe in reincarnation though. Like that's a weird thought. Like I think
That's one thing I kind of do too.
I'm like, I'm headed down there. I'm like, okay, when did Michael Jackson die? All right, let's see what babies were born and see if we can find the next Michael Jackson.
Well, do you think if you do kind of go down that route, and that's kind of what you believe in, do you feel that when someone's reincarnated, that they have aspects of their prior life,
I don't think
like
you'd
as far as personality traits or anything?
I don't think you'd remember it, but I think you'll be exceptionally good at something close to that. Like it's weird because I talked to a guy, his name's Andrew McQuinn, and he was like very anti-religion. He wrote a book about it called The World's Biggest Lie. His episode probably has gotten me the most criticism so far, just because he's literally calling it all out. And
Is
uh
that one of the recent ones?
yeah. And,
Okay, I was gonna listen to that one this morning, but I
okay.
listened to the other. I can't remember the guy with the folk tales.
Oh yeah. That's Jason.
Yeah,
I think it's Jason.
I
Don't
think.
quote me. But him talking about like your brain when you die, it goes to zero. There is no anything else after zero. It's just zero. So these people that have been exposed as not really seeing heaven and talking to angels who had like near death experiences. I'm actually getting a guest on here to talk about near death experiences and all that type of stuff as well too. I know what to look for to tell if they're actually telling me the truth, but I'll honestly, like we said, memory is very flimsy. It's very hard to know that was I experiencing in my scenario at my uncle's house, was that deja vu or was that my brain thinking that it's seen it before? But for
Mhm.
me, I remember having a dream of that. So it just makes it more difficult because you got to write that shit down, dude. You got to say it in
Yeah,
something because you never know if you have it recorded, knowing, hey, this was recorded on this date. Then when it happens to you, like I fucking remember that.
yeah. Now, do you think what you're experiencing is the astral projection, where you're
Yeah,
actually leaving your body?
but it doesn't go through time. So I don't, that's not astral projection. You can't go through time. You can go through like
Hmm.
maybe if it's the same day, but you can't go to the future unless you're going to another dimension where it's in it like a
Yeah, going back to the multiverse.
fuck. But it makes me think of like, damn it, if I would have known, was there a way to predict that that was going to happen? Like, because apparently he was sick a couple days before. like massive,
Mhm.
like not COVID, but like just heart
Yeah.
issues. I mean, he kind of was like a Lenny Kravitz type. So you're doing cocaine in your 70s. He got clean towards the end, thank God. But it's just a thing. I was like, damn it, is there something I could have done? And then that gets into your head, and then you're fucking down a really dark, fucking spiraling rabbit hole where it just leads into like that's predictive thinking. If you're able to predict a murder that's about to happen, like that movie with Tom Cruise or whatever, like is that going to be a possibility? Are our brains capable of that if we're open to the idea of maybe future thought is why people got invested into remote viewing and stuff like that. So it's very, very interesting to go kind of, I wonder what people are doing to be able to see if there's a way that we can actually foresee things, like how there's prophets throughout history, or there's people that are like the chosen ones or the oracles in movies and all these types of things. That's based on real stuff, people that had insight into the future. That's got to be some type of thing.
Now, do you feel that those people, like the prophets and the oracles that had foresight on things, do you feel that they actually had that foresight, or do you think they were just really good salesmen and just convinced people?
I bet you a lot of times they were probably really good salesmen, but maybe there was that specific few that was above the rest. I mean, if you look up psychic experiences now, you'll have a lot more people saying that there'll be psychics. I mean, I had a person a long time ago on my show, Renee Odell Hurt, I think her name was. She talked about like it's an evolutionary thing. Like eventually more people are going to be psychics, more new empathetic, I would say, the empath people,
Mhm.
more of that in the younger generations, more of having a sense of awareness and stuff around you. Your brain develops differently, man. It's like technology. There's probably kids now that are being born with all this technology. Their brain probably is neglecting in some parts, but really advanced in others. I mean, half of them could be able to create a video in 2 seconds flat that would take you an hour and a half.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's just general advancements. I mean, as far as psychics go, I am very skeptical. I think everybody should be. We do have one that we work with that has done a lot of like holy shit moments. She's actually in England. And she goes on her Facebook lives during investigations, and there's some things that just blow my mind that she just knows, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like, how does that work? Especially if you're not there, not even close to the location. You know what I mean? Because I feel like people can pick up energy being at a location, but to be able to do it just through a video and being on, the other side of the world, like that's just insane.
Trying to make sure I got this lady's name correct. I don't know. I can't find her.
It's
Prob-
correct. It's
She was,
correct enough for
we
me.
were friends on Facebook. She might have blocked me. I've been watching my number on my friends list, like it was dropping. I was like, well, who the fuck is like, I guess it's just people you don't talk to. I wish everybody a happy birthday, so that's not why.
Yeah, I try to do that too. Just send out some good vibes for people.
It's just when I see, I mean, sometimes that's like what people really need, is that
Yeah.
just positive little thing where it's like, fuck it. If that makes somebody's day, then might as well do it. I bet if there was more love in the world, and I don't want a whole entire kumbaya circle of peace. No, I don't think that'll ever happen, but just people stop fucking with other people. Like
Yeah.
Joe Rogan being censored off a bunch of stuff now, and everyone's giving him. Have you seen him trending?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Him and who was it? Neil Young. They
Oh no. There's new now.
oh, there's new now. Okay.
Someone did a compilation video of Joe Rogan saying the word you're never going to say because you can't say it right.
That's been out for a while.
I was about to say, because that's been trending all over. And now Spotify has removed, at the time we're recording this, about 100 episodes. And
Mhm.
yesterday it was 72. So they're going through and going all the way through like the very controversial ones. And I'm like, this
Yeah.
is it. And then he made a public apology about it. And then it's like, damn it. Now there's people that are like, you shouldn't have done that because now the censorship, it just makes it more difficult for us. Like now my Spotify is getting checked. Like it says a warning label on
Yeah.
Spotify now, like, did you read our disclaimer? I'm like, I did. And they're like, okay, well, just letting you know if we catch anything, we're pulling it. And I'm like,
I didn't know he did a public apology because of that video. He actually, I went and saw a stand up when he came to Pittsburgh.
you better
I forget
shout
how
at
long
my
ago that was.
podcast out.
I was wearing the alien shirt.
He's not paying attention. He's high as hell. You got to jump up in front of him. Be like, yo.
But he even brought up that video. He's like, there's a video of me saying this over and over again. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. And I'm like, that's all people needed was there's already so many people trying to cut him down where it was like, it's just because people feel like you're ahead of the game. That's why people hate billionaires. They feel like they got a better hand of cards. And that means we got to take away your cards. And I don't think necessarily that's it. I just wish there were more options and avenue to people to be able to pursue the things they want to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And just because they have conflicting views than what your views are doesn't mean that they should be censored. I think everybody should be able to say whatever the hell they want. I mean, we live in freaking America. Why shouldn't you be able to say what you want? Because we're supposed to be free.
When you die, if there is an afterlife, do you really think any of that matters?
Yeah, probably not, because just going into the next body anyways, right, Rob?
Do you think, dude, I'm not, see, I like,
I'm joking.
I know, I like that idea though. I like it. Mostly it just, I don't like the way that it's been, I've heard it before where it was like, well, you get to choose if you spend enough time up there that you can go into another body if you want. I was like, I would never want to leave the idea or memories of my family, even if it's over with, you know what I mean? They're like, yeah, but after how long a time? You're up there 1,000 years. You eventually go, hey, maybe I want another ride around, but I won't remember though. Oh yeah, you will deep in your core. I don't like that idea. I just think your energy becomes a part of something else. And I think that energy might be new life. You know what I mean? Like people talk about like, in movies, you'll see, for instance, a person dies and a baby's born. Maybe that's the energy going into there. Maybe it needs a bit of yours. Maybe we're all a bit of stardust or cosmic particles. I think I'm probably more in belief of like, we're definitely some type of weird chemical that is able to adapt to its environment and be able to evolve in the way that it's evolved. I would like to see two people who are exactly the same age. One's one, the other one's one, have one person on Venus and the other one on fucking Earth. So watch that life grow and see what it does. There was The Boy from Mars, was a movie. He was born on Mars and spent, I guess, his early childhood on Mars. And then when he went to Earth, his body, he ended up dying 6 months later because the gravity was so different. His bones were formed differently. And I just go, there's definitely some type of like the idea of exoplanets. And I've talked about it exclusively with a lot of people involved in the NASA like research study for exoplanets. Man, there's something there where you start going like, there's a lot of things that are suitable to our life, but what about what's not suitable for our life? What about things that are growing there that have adapted because they're able to evolve in that climate that would die on the planet that we survive on? And it just makes it more interesting where I start wondering what our full capabilities of humans are. It's not war. It's not just death. It's something different. Our cells being able to live to be 90 years old now, or our bodies, for instance, these husks, these shells, how long until we're able to live to be 900 without tech being put into us? We only know what we know now, but if we're able to, I think the oldest woman was 116 years old. She was 45 in World War II. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Like, she eats gin soaked raisins 9 a night. That's her secret method. Like, I don't know what the capacities for human life are going to be. I don't know how far they extend. And I'm very, very curious to where when one day are we ever going to be like 1,000 fucking years old?
Well, I think it depends too. Do you feel that you could pass your consciousness on to another body? Do you think that's the next step in order to sustain life?
I think there's a better way to do it than just doing that with tech. Like that movie with Keanu Reeves on Netflix now, where he puts his family into their consciousness into clones, like clones that he created. I don't think that's the next stage. I think the next stage is that you're going to be able to figure out how to like, there's people that fast. I can fast from 4 p.m. till like 1 p.m. or something like that the next day. It's a mindset thing, but eventually you adapt. Like if I'm doing something, I don't get hungry, but then when I'm not doing something, I get hungry. You just need to adapt or change your mindset or thinking. And I think after a while, your body adjusts to that. If every day you're used to the same coffee every single morning, and the one day you can't have coffee, you feel off. That's the thing, is you adapt to it. You adapt to the change. People are like, we'll never go to brown bags, or we'll never go to masks. You adapt. It's programming. You adapt. You just need to change a sudden thing, and then you get used to the new.
Yeah, yeah. Or you just need to get some of your intestine removed, and then you can't eat for a couple days anyways, and you're
Nothing
kind
but
of
Jello.
forced to adapt.
Nothing but Jello.
No, I couldn't even do that for a couple days. It was horrible.
Did you feel lighter though when you were done?
I felt very spry.
I was thinking like, hey, I lost a couple of pounds. What else can you take out of me?
Yeah, exactly. No, it was horrible. I hope never have to go through that again.
At least they caught it.
Yeah.
It could have been worse.
Yeah. For sure.
Sorry for throwing us down a weird rabbit hole.
No, it's fine. I enjoy it.
Do you have anything else on your mind before we wrap up the show?
Well, no. I mean, we have a documentary coming out on the Grand Midway Hotel. It's actually 2 locations. It's the Grand Midway Hotel and the Renaissance Church. They're both right next to each other. Essentially, the same owner has them, so we got to investigate both places. Unfortunately, my camera is off spec the entire investigation, so the visual's a little fucked. But I did get that fixed, so moving forward, we'll have better camera work.
Start filming in 4K.
In 4K, yeah. We actually did have a situation where I think I told you about this maybe last time I was on, about the camera getting knocked down at an investigation. Did I tell you that?
I don't know.
Well, we were at Loveland Castle, and we had Sean does this remote channeling session where he puts noise canceling headphones on and hooks it up to the spirit box and puts a blindfold on. And it's supposed to be kind of like a deprivation type of scenario where you can't hear anything, and you just shout out what comes through on a spirit box. And we add an aspect to it. It's called the Estes method, but we add an aspect to it where we had an extra baby monitor. So we have a baby monitor camera in there with Sean, and then we had 2 regular cameras. And then we were in another room with, looking at Sean through the monitor, and you're able to hit the talk button and ask questions through that. And he can't hear the questions that you're asking. And at one point I had asked if there's anything in there with Sean, can you knock one of the cameras over? And our videographer at the time, he's no longer with the team, he was like, not the $1,000 one. And luckily it listened. It knocked over the baby monitor camera. But it was kind of cool because we had the other cameras in there, and you could actually, see that it wasn't manipulated by anything when it was knocked over.
It's great to see that you're using your skills to the usage of mankind by making ghosts jump through fucking loop-de-loops to fucking. I would have been like, just can you make the lights flick? You're like fucking knock over a camera. Like, I want to see some cool shit.
Yeah, exactly. Go big.
That's fucking funny. Not the $1,000 one. That's priceless, dude. That's great. I'll link your links in the description, but do you want to say them real quick for everybody listening?
Yeah, we're Bumping the Night Society. We're on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. We're actually got a huge following on TikTok. We're at like 103,000 followers or some shit. I don't even have a TikTok, so I don't know what the hell goes on there. Instagram, all that fun stuff. Like I said, we got a documentary coming out on the Grand Midway Hotel. It's called One Cold Night at the Grand Midway Hotel. And the second part's in my opinion, a little better, because it does kind of put everything together as far as the investigation goes, because there's something dark lurking in the canopy room at the Grand Midway Hotel. It's a woman that is prone to attacking men. And there's a theory that she had committed suicide. A psychic had mentioned that. And there's also a theory she was strangled. And just like I always like to do, I try to solve the mystery, and we do have a conclusion that kind of puts everything together, in my opinion, pretty well.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank. Stay tuned for our next episode. And also, seeing is believing, but we're driving, so pay attention to the road.